Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
All right, and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, and as always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. All right, we got stuff to talk about today. It is now Tuesday, and let me tell you what's going on. All right, Earl Thomas. I think him, just like us, is just waiting to see what's going to go on with his future. All right, is he going to be a Seahawk this season, or is he going to get traded? Okay. He had an Instagram post we'll be talking about in this first segment, give my thoughts on that whole situation. All right. Then we got some details coming out about what the Steelers offered Le'Veon Bell. We'll be talking about that. The Rams deciding to extend everyone and sign everyone besides Aaron Donald. And we got T.O. wanting to make a return to football. Okay. It's a lot to unpack, but nonetheless, that's what we'll be talking about today. All right. A lot of NFC East or NFC West team talk. Okay. Some Pittsburgh Steeler talk. And then I guess some more Terrell Owens talk, but I'm not sure how much we're going to get into the Terrell Owens talk. It might just be brief. All right. But nonetheless, I mean, if T.O. could play, you think Randy Moss has still got it? Randy Moss. I'd like to see Randy Moss in the CFL. All right. Let's see. Who do you think's retired recently that still got it? I can't think off the top of my head. But nonetheless, I mean, I feel like we always tease a little. Like, there's always a T.O. return tease. Like, every couple of years. All right. And I knew something like this was going to pop up once he ran that 40. That video of him running that 40 at 4.4. Okay. I knew something like this was going to pop up. But nonetheless, I mean, you can't tell me that you wouldn't watch more CFL if it meant Terrell Owens. You were watching Terrell Owens. All right, because I definitely know I would. Okay. But nonetheless, all right, Earl Thomas pretty much calling the Seahawks out, saying let's cut it all out and let's get down to business here. Okay. Earl Thomas just wants to figure out what's going on with his future, and I mean, who doesn't? Okay. Let me see. Let me pull up his little Instagram picture and all that, because this is where this is all coming from. So he posts a picture of him working out with weights and all that. The caption reads, "Always been the underdog, ain't nothing new. Extend, ... If you don't want me." Okay. It says, "If you don't want me, let's make a trade happen. I understand it's a biz," with 2 Z's. Emoji, 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 emoji. All right. So obviously Earl Thomas is pretty much getting out to the forefront of all this and saying, you know what, Seattle, let's cut it all out. Let's figure out what's going on here. Are you going to extend me or are you going to trade me? Okay. And I mean, I feel like all this Earl Thomas trade talk has really stemmed from that one time where he was telling Jason Garrett, I think it was, to come get him, meaning to come trade for him. All right. And I mean, it's been talked about that Earl Thomas has been open about the fact that, yeah, he does want to go play in Dallas. Okay. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't want to be in Seattle either, okay? Obviously, Earl Thomas is open to an extension with Seattle. He wouldn't be saying it to, in that Instagram caption to extend him if he didn't want to be there long term, okay? Earl Thomas has not showed up to minicamp or anything like that, and I mean, it makes sense. All right, the dude's 29. You can't be risking injury at this point in his career. He's due for one more big money contract, okay? Do not risk that whatsoever. Do not do anything to risk that. All right, if I was him, if Seattle's not trading me and they're not extending me, I'm not playing it down this season. Okay? I think he can afford to do that since he's already on the last year of his deal. Okay? It's not like he has another year after that. And I think that's the move here. Okay? There's no point in risking yourself of injury in order to play one last year with Seattle because they're not going to extend you. Okay? He's got to be selfish here and pretty much, like I say, just be selfish. Do not play until you figure out what's going on. Okay? And even if Seattle does end up trading him, I mean, I'm assuming the team he's going to is going to need to have an extension ready for him because I feel like that's the whole basis of the situation. All right? If you don't extend him, send me somewhere where someone else will. All right? And I think that's what he's got to do here. And I'm just curious to see what Seattle's move is going to be. All right? Seattle has had a real fall from grace here. All right? Truly, let me tell you. I mean, we're 4 years removed from their Super Bowl win. Okay? And now it's just a point where can they rebuild well enough to get back to being a dominant team once again? Because, I mean, Seattle was always a tough place to play at. All right? Legion of Boom, everything going on. And now it's just a point where, I mean, the Rams blew them out at home last season. That was where we saw, Seattle at home isn't as scary as you thought it was once. All right? And it's just crazy to see how we've seen these teams only a few years removed from Super Bowls pretty much just trying to rebuild. All right? I mean, look at the Denver Broncos. 3 years ago when they won the Super Bowl. Last 2 years, they've been a bad team. Okay? Now it's just a point where they're trying to get back to relevancy. Okay? And we'll see if Seattle can do that. Because, I mean, the problem there is every team in that division has gotten better. Okay? San Francisco is going into their new era with Jimmy Garoppolo. Can he follow in the footsteps of Joe Montana and Steve Young? Okay? Then you got Arizona, who finished 8-8 last season. I think that's one of the biggest kept secrets is that Seattle actually is, or not Seattle, I keep getting them confused with Arizona, but Arizona, as bad as they were at quarterback, still finished at 500. All right, Carson Palmer missed half of that season. You had Blaine Gabbert and Drew Stanton leading them going forward. All right, they still finished 8-8. Now they're adding back David Johnson. They upgraded at the quarterback position. The defense is still pretty solid. I mean, who's to think that they can't go 9-7 or even 10-6? Okay, and then you got the Rams, who we're going to be talking about later on. I mean, on paper, they're probably the most complete team in the NFL. Okay. And then now you got Seattle, where you got a defense who doesn't really scare you too much, right? Like I said, the Legion of Boom is no more. I mean, that pretty much takes away from a lot of their identity. All right, this is a new Seattle team. This is a new era coming up. All right, and I think it's just a matter of, does Seattle want Earl Thomas to be part of that new era? Okay, this isn't going to be the same Seahawks team that we all fell in love with, or I guess hated. All right, I loved watching the Seahawks when they had Richard Sherman, Chancellor Thomas, and even and Brandon Browner that first time let go of it. All right. Now, I mean, one's out the league, facing real hard legal issues. Okay, Richard Sherman's 30, coming off of an Achilles injury, playing for the 49ers now. Cam Chancellor had to retire. And Earl Thomas is just the last one remaining, but he could be gone too. All right. And like I said, it's crazy how the NFL is like this. 1 year, you're at the top of the top. A couple years pass, you're back at the bottom. Okay? I mean, they've lost Marshawn Lynch. They've lost everyone. So now it's just a point of, can this new Seattle team bring them back to relevancy? All right. I mean, you got Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson there to help you do it. All right. Both top 5 at what they do. Pete Carroll, definitely a top 5 coach. Russell Wilson, I think, definitely a top 5 quarterback. All right. Both know what it takes to get to that promised land. So we'll see. And I think, too, with maybe Seattle being hesitant on extending Earl Thomas, maybe they're thinking the guy's injury prone. Because the last 2 seasons, he has missed 7 games. But, I mean, last year he only missed 2. 2016 is when he played only in 11. All right. So, I mean, he's near 30. He's missed 7 games the last 2 seasons. Yeah, that's going to be cause for concern. But I still think Earl Thomas is going to be fine. I think he's going to stay relatively healthy. All right. Because before these last 2 years, I mean, he did start and play in 16 games every season up until 2016. Okay, and I don't think there's too many NFL players who have ever gone their entire career playing all 16 games, starting all 16 games every season. You're bound to get hurt at least a couple times in your NFL career, and you're bound to miss some games. That's just part of the game there. All right, but like I said, that could be something that is playing into the Seahawks' head, and they're thinking, you know what, he's near 30, he hasn't really stayed healthy too much the last 2 years, so should we really extend this guy? All right, and I mean, Earl Thomas still is one of the best safeties in the league, so it's just a matter of what they feel comfortable doing. Okay. Like I said, this is the last big contract Earl Thomas can get. After that, once this deal is up, he'll probably be out the league. Yeah, he'll probably be out the league. All right. So, I mean, obviously he's going to want to make this one count. There's no point in risking injury for this team. All right. He's got to be selfish here. So it's going to be interesting, like I said. I mean, it's a new era in Seattle. It's just a matter of, do they want Earl Thomas in that new era? All right. They do have I think they have a decent offense. The defense is what really scares me here, and usually it's been the other side around. I think Doug Baldwin's going to be just fine this season. I mean, he's been a great receiver for them. I think Brandon Marshall could have a decent season with Russell Wilson being the best quarterback he's ever played under. All right. I think Rashad Penny, even though he maybe was a bit of a reach in that first round, could be a decent running back for Seattle. It's just a matter of, can their offensive line block too? All right. But like I said, I mean, yeah, usually you're more worried about the offense than you are with the defense, but now it's completely switched. Now you're paying attention. Can the defense really step up and help this offense out? All right. So we'll see. I mean, if I had to make my pick, I'd say that maybe Seattle ends up extending him, but I mean, you got Dallas, the Patriots, and the Chargers who, I mean, could be players for Earl Thomas. All right. So we'll see what ends up happening, but nonetheless, I mean, it should be resolved by training camp or at least before the season starts. So we'll know by then, I think. But either way, we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we're going to be talking about a different NFC West team. We're going to be talking about the Rams, so stay tuned, and I will be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. We spent that first segment talking about Earl Thomas, what's going to be happening with him and the Seahawks. I mean, you extend Earl Thomas, that's fine. I mean, Seattle's still got a whole lot more work they got to do on that defense, but nonetheless, I mean, if you're Seattle and you're truly trying to do like a little mini rebuild here, why not just trade him away and try to build up picks? Okay. Because, I mean, he's 29, does he really fit in with your plans? Okay. And I think that's just maybe what Seattle's trying to figure out here, the direction they're trying to go in. Okay, because your team is going to be competitive since you do have a great head coach and you do have a top 5 quarterback, but it's just a point where how competitive are you going to be? Can you be a playoff team, or are you just going to be one who's finishing 7-9, 8-8, just kind of hanging around the entire time? Okay. I mean, it's going to be tough for them to make the playoffs. They're playing in a real tough division as it is already, plus the rest of the NFC is pretty stacked. All right, and one of the NFC West teams I want to talk about right here is the Rams. All right. Rams, I mean, had a huge offseason, brought in Marcus Peters, brought in Aqib Talib, brought in Brandin Cooks, okay, and also brought in Ndamukong Suh. I mean, those are we want to win the Super Bowl this season type of moves. You don't bring in those guys unless you're trying to win the big trophy. All right. And obviously, I mean, when they brought in Ndamukong Suh, everyone was just like, wait, so what's going to be happening with Aaron Donald? Are you guys going to be extending him or not? Okay. And, I mean, that's been a question all offseason long, and it remains even more so of a question now that they've extended Brandin Cooks. Okay, a guy they just signed this season. Usually you'll see teams who will extend their own players before they extend the outside guys coming in from the outside. All right. Now with Brandin Cooks getting extended, he's making about $16 million a year. All right. Of course, that's not all guaranteed, but with incentives and all, that's pretty much the basis of his deal. All right. I mean, that makes him, as far as yearly salary goes, the third highest paid receiver. Okay. Actually, I think it makes him the fourth, if I'm not mistaken, because I forget. I had to see how much Antonio Brown is currently making. Antonio Brown is making $17 million a year, so yeah, it makes him the fourth. Okay. Or at least tied for fourth with Sammy Watkins. But nonetheless, I mean, Brandin Cooks, I have no problem with them extending him. Okay. Robert Woods, as good as he is at home, he's not as good on the road. And I mean, if you're going to be a number one receiver on a team, you got to be good in all aspects of the game. Okay, Brandin Cooks is a guy I think the Rams could rely on. People will point to his time in New England. I mean, it's not easy for everyone to play in New England. Okay, we've seen guys like Chad Johnson going over to New England, and it just doesn't work out. Okay? I mean, the way they run their organization is completely different from the rest of the 31 teams. There's literally nothing like it. All right? Players will go over there saying, yeah, they learned a lot, but it's just completely different from anything they've ever done in their NFL career. And it's just, like I said, it's not for everyone. Okay? You have some guys who get success but say they didn't really enjoy their time in New England because it's treated more so as a job rather than they're playing football. All right? So, I mean, guys like Teddy Bruschi, Tom Brady, and all that can go through it, but nonetheless, Brandin Cooks and Chad Johnson struggled, but I don't necessarily blame them. I mean, like I said, it's not for everyone. All right, so I don't think his time in New England is really going to have an effect on him going forward. I think he's going to be just as good as he was in New Orleans here with LA. Okay, this is a solid move for the Rams considering the fact that you got a young quarterback in Jared Goff, and now you've got him, someone he could be comfortable with as his number one receiver. All right, yesterday, the word of the day was stability with the Cleveland Browns, and we're seeing here the Rams are given some stability with, obviously, Jared Goff having his number one receiver. All right? And, I mean, this offense, I'm assuming the next person you lock up is Todd Gurley. Then you're going to have to worry about Jared Goff. And, I mean, after that, once you get your three core guys, then you start building up with the offensive line and building in number 2 and number 3 guys after that, as far as receivers and tight ends go. Okay? But, like I said, with them extending Brandin Cooks, that just raises the question, are they going to be extending Aaron Donald, or are we just going to keep avoiding that? All right? And, I mean, it's a question that needs to be asked. Okay? Aaron Donald is still on his rookie contract, but nonetheless already regarded as the best defensive tackle in football. All right? And defensive tackles nowadays are getting quarterback-type money. All right? Let me see if I could look at what the current defensive tackles are making in the NFL. All right. Let me see right here. So we got Fletcher Cox. He's got $36 million guaranteed. He's making about $17 million a year. Marcel Darius has got nearly $43 guaranteed. All right, he's making $16 million a year. Gerald McCoy. Actually, no, I'm looking at the wrong guarantee. Excuse me, it was guaranteed at signing. Okay, Fletcher Cox is making $63 million guaranteed. Marcel Darius is getting $60. Gerald McCoy is getting $51.5. Malik Jackson is getting $42. Quan Short's getting $35. Jarrell Casey got $40. Geno Atkins $15. Okay, Brandon Williams $33. Corey Leger is getting $30. Linval Joseph is getting $31. Star Lutule is getting $24. Timmy Jernigan is getting $24. So I mean, we're seeing where it's at right there. Fletcher Cox getting $63. I mean, they figure that Aaron Donald's got to get around $65 to $70 million guaranteed on his deal. Okay. And let me see, 65. How many quarterbacks are making less than 65 guaranteed? All right, let me check that out real quick. Let's see, Cam Newton is making 60 guaranteed. All right. Let's see, you got Andy Dalton who's making 17 guaranteed. Let's see, who else? Aaron Rodgers is currently at 54 guaranteed. Russell Wilson's at 61. Big Ben right now is at 34. Phillip Rivers at 65, Rantano's at 45, Flacco's at 44, Bortles is 26, Drew Brees is 27, Brady's currently 28, Keenum 25 guaranteed. All right, Tyrod Taylor's 15. So he'd be making a lot more guaranteed than a lot of the starting quarterbacks in this league right now, and a lot of the good starting quarterbacks. Okay? And if you're the Rams, you kind of look and you see over in Miami what they did with Ndamukong Suh, who's now their player. All right, giving him all that money didn't necessarily work out as far as wins and losses go. Sure, he was a good player, but nonetheless, it didn't necessarily help their team. Okay, as far as winning games. And I think that the Rams are looking at that and saying, do we truly want to pay this guy all this money? Okay. And it's a point where the Rams, I think, are just taking it slow and being a bit smart about it. All right, you don't want to make the same mistakes that other teams around you have made because of the fact that you can avoid them easily. All right, I wouldn't be opposed to them giving Aaron Donald a bunch of money. Like I said, I mean, he is one of the best defensive tackles in football. And I mean, as of right now, they got the number 1 and number 2 defensive tackles in football on their team. All right, it's just a point where you sign Aaron Donald to all that money. Like I said, Todd Gurley's going to be up for a deal soon. I think he's currently entering his 3rd year right now. Actually, he might be his 4th year. All right, of course, he's probably going to have his 5th-year option picked up. And same with Jared Goff, but nonetheless, you're going to have to be paying them a lot of money. All right? And if I'm the Rams, I mean, you got to figure that Todd Gurley and Jared Goff are more of a priority than Aaron Donald is. Okay? But, I mean, that's just the way it goes in the world of the NFL. So it's going to be really interesting to see exactly what they end up doing. All right? But, I mean, as of right now, they're built to win a Super Bowl. Okay? They are one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl this season. I mean, like I said, you don't bring in Talib, Peters, Suh, and Cooks just to make the playoffs and hope for the best. You're doing this so you can compete with teams like the Patriots and Steelers if you meet them in the Super Bowl. All right. Plus, I mean, you got that NFC where, I mean, you've got maybe 2 bad teams at the most. Okay. Probably going to have to go through the Saints in the playoffs, possibly. Maybe you have to meet up with Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs. Maybe the Vikings, or even if you have to play the Eagles, possibly. All right? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the Rams end up doing. But like I said, they're spending a lot of money, and not a lot of it's going to Aaron Donald here. Okay, he's got to be seeing all of this and thinking, you know what? Yeah, they're all teammates and stuff like that, but it's got to feel a bit disrespected that the Rams haven't taken care of him yet. Okay? And if the Rams choose not to, someone else will. All right, so it's a matter of if the Rams are not going to extend him, do you let him walk for nothing? Okay, because we don't really see too many big-name player trades in the NFL. All right. And I mean, let me see. Is Aaron Donald, does he have an option after the season, or is he just a free agent after this 2018 season? Let me double-check his current rookie contract. All right. And I mean, if the Rams have another year like where they could pick up another team option and pick him up on another year, then maybe that's what they're trying to do in order to wait a bit before they are extending him. All right. But let me see real quick. So yeah, Aaron Donald, he's a restricted free agent in 2019. So whatever team offers him next season, the Rams can match. But there's a point where, I mean, he's going to get top defensive tackle type money. Okay. And he does have he's currently on his 5th-year option right now. So, yeah, he'll be a restricted free agent in 2019. And there's a point where you got a team off making him the highest paid player in the NFL. Do the Rams match that? No. All right, so maybe that, yeah. I mean, maybe that's just what they're waiting for. They're not extending him because they're going to wait and see what the market is going to be offering him. All right? I mean, that's the only really thing I can assume right here. So, we'll see what ends up happening. But nonetheless, I mean, even if they lose Aaron Donald, I still think the Rams got a pretty solid team going forward. So, like I said, we'll see what ends up happening. But nonetheless, we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Steelers and Le'Veon Bell. There's been details coming out about what the Steelers actually offered him. So, we'll be talking about that too. So, stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. We spent that first segment talking about Earl Thomas. Is he going to be extending with the Seahawks, or is he going to be getting traded? I don't think the extension's really up to him, okay? He's open to it. He's talked about how he's open to it, but nonetheless, the Seahawks are more so just waiting to see what they want to do. All right, Earl Thomas is currently 29. He's still one of the best safeties in football, so, I figured that, yeah, you'd extend him, but, he's been 7 games over the last 2 seasons, so it's a point where maybe they're just being a bit cautious here. Okay, and if I'm Earl Thomas, I'm not playing it down until I figure out until my future's secured. All right, he's 29 right now. Like I said, he's missed 7 games the last 2 seasons. You want to make that big money deal, all right, before you even step foot out there. Okay, this is going to be the last big deal he gets, so I have no problem with him sitting out as long as he can until he gets that big money deal. All right, second segment, we talked about the Rams extending Brandin Cooks, giving him a 5-year extension at $80 million. Not sure how much of it is guaranteed, but nonetheless, you got to assume Aaron Donald's sitting there thinking, okay, so am I just not going to get extended here, or what's going on? All right, and Donald's a restricted free agent next offseason, so the Rams are maybe just waiting to see what the market says he's worth. If they're able to pay it, then they'll match it, but if not, maybe they'll just let him walk. Okay. So we've talked about that so far. Now we're going to head over back to the Le'Veon Bell discussion. Okay, yesterday was the deadline for them to work out a long-term deal. The deadline passed and no deal was reached. Okay, there was rumblings as far as what the Steelers actually offered him. And the deal, it was reported by Ian Rappaport and Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk. Okay, deal was 5 years, $70 million. On paper, that sounds great at first, all right? When you first hear 5 years, $70 million, you're thinking, oh, it's $14 million a year. Pretty good deal for a running back, considering the fact that the highest paid running back as of right now is Devontae Freeman at $8.2 million a year. Okay? But then you get deeper into the conversation and you realize that only $10 million of it was actually guaranteed. Okay? And the way the deal goes, I think it was kind of like Colin Kaepernick's deal, big money deal, when he signed with San Francisco. Okay? Kaepernick each season was there, money would be guaranteed. But if the Rams or if the 49ers were to cut him after a season, they wouldn't have to pay him the rest of his contract. It's more so if you're on the roster the next year, then yeah, that year is guaranteed. But if you're not on the roster, then nothing about your contract is guaranteed and you lose out. Okay, I think that's what the Steelers were trying to do with Le'Veon Bell here. It'd be $10 million guaranteed at signing, okay? And if he was there for the first 2 years of his contract, he gets $33 million. If he's there for the first 3 years, then he gets $45. But of course, if the Steelers wanted to cut him, they'd get off scot-free, wouldn't have to pay him those rolling guarantees. Okay? So if you're on the final roster, the 53-man roster to start the season, you get your guaranteed money. If you're not, you don't get your money. Okay? That would be an awful deal for Le'Veon Bell to sign. Okay? Le'Veon gets hurt or has one bad season. Steelers cut him. They get off free. Le'Veon Bell doesn't make his money. Okay, and I saw a lot of Steelers fans going at Le'Veon Bell yesterday, and I'm not really sure that they understood exactly what kind of deal that was being offered to Le'Veon Bell. All right. Earlier, I saw that maybe $30 million of it was guaranteed, but now I see it was all about rolling guarantees and all that. None of it was actually legitimately guaranteed. Then I have no problem with him not signing that deal. Okay. It seemed like the Steelers offered him a deal where, in reality, yeah, you can't accept that. You're a running back, okay? He's 26 right now. It's probably the last big money deal he'll be getting. Okay? As you know, I mean, running backs get tossed out once they hit the age of 30. Okay, and it would make no sense for Le'Veon Bell to sign this deal. So now it's just a matter of Steelers, I think, tried pulling a fast one, but everyone knows exactly what kind of deal they were trying to give Le'Veon. And like I said, it'd make no sense for Le'Veon to take that deal. Okay? So now on the franchise tag, he's going to be making about $14.25 million this season. And, I mean, if I'm Le'Veon, do you sit out the first half of the season? Okay? I think that's something that has to cross your mind. All right? Because like I said, if Le'Veon gets hurt, he's not getting that big deal that he wants. He's not getting that final big deal. He's been playing on the franchise tag the last 2 seasons. Okay? And, I mean, he's tweeted out that he wants to make this the best season he's had in Pittsburgh, and I'm assuming it's going to be his last, but there's a point where you got to be a bit selfish here, and you got to think of yourself. Okay? Because as much as he might love playing for Pittsburgh and all that, Pittsburgh obviously doesn't think he's worth what he says he is or what he thinks he is, so why are you going to pretty much put your financial future on the line as far as a big deal you could be making in order to play for a team who's not willing to pay you? Okay? I mean, 2013, his salary was $405,000. 2014, it was $495,000. 2015, it was $687,000. 2016, it was $853,000. 2017, he's under the franchise tag, so he makes $12 million. And then this season, he's under the franchise tag, so he's making $14.5, I believe it is. Okay. Over his career, let's see, he's made about $30 million total. Okay. I mean, I figured that Le'Veon Bell, as good as he is worth a whole lot more than that. All right. So like I said, I mean, he's got to be a bit cautious here. I understand that you're going to be making a lot of money this season, but you get hurt and it's all done. Okay? You'll be getting a 1-year, 2-year deal with whatever team you sign with after the season if you're getting hurt. And I'm sure his agent and his camp has got to be in his ear letting him know about it. All right? Ultimately, the decision's going to come down to him, but they got to be telling him that there's a huge possibility he misses out on a whole bunch of money if he ends up getting hurt. Okay? I mean, you don't want it to end up where you're like Odell Beckham Jr. or whatever, and you end up getting hurt, and you're not sure if the Giants are going to be paying you all that money. All right? I mean, Odell Beckham was probably on his way to becoming one of the highest paid receivers in football, or the highest paid receiver in football now. He might fall a little bit after that. Okay? And it's just a point where, like I said, running backs, people say, oh yeah, the running back position's coming back, but that's false. Okay? It's not. Running backs are still treated pretty poorly in this age of the NFL. All right? And, I mean, there's going to be a lucky team who ends up with Le'Veon Bell next season. Could it be the Browns? Why not? I'm sure they'll have the cap space to do it. And, I mean, Le'Veon Bell, you got to be thinking, all right? You did so much for Pittsburgh. They didn't want to pay you. Why not stick it to him over in Cleveland? All right? Cleveland's got a real solid squad right now. You add a Le'Veon Bell, that's a playoff team, I think. Okay? It'll be interesting. I mean, we can also see Le'Veon head over to Indianapolis. All right? Indianapolis has never really brought over guys like that, never really signed players like that as far as giving them a whole bunch of money. But nonetheless, I mean, you give Andrew Luck, Le'Veon Bell, that's a Super Bowl contending team right there. All right? I mean, one of the best offenses in football if you have Andrew Luck and Le'Veon Bell in the same offense. All right? Le'Veon Bell, T.Y. Hill, and Andrew Luck. I mean, what more could you ask for there? Okay? Man, I mean, with the Steelers, now, after this season, they're most likely going to be looking for someone to replace Le'Veon. And, I mean, their offense is going to be getting worse. There's no way. I mean, it's extremely difficult to replace a guy that produces as well as much as Le'Veon does for that offense. Okay, you can go and draft whoever you want, but the chances of him being as good as Le'Veon Bell is slim to none. Okay? Le'Veon Bell does a lot to open up for this offense. All right, with Le'Veon Bell in the backfield, you can't really stack the box. With Le'Veon Bell in the backfield, you can't really play too many defensive backs out there for Antonio Brown. So that gives him open space, and even then so, all right. I mean, you got Le'Veon Bell receiving the ball at the backfield. That creates another problem for the defense. All right. But Pittsburgh, obviously, I think Pittsburgh was just playing games here. Okay? Obviously, like I said, I mean, the first report of the deal coming out was 5 years, $70 million. It wasn't really known how much of it was guaranteed. All right, so, I mean, when I saw that, I was thinking, oh, yeah, Le'Veon Bell should have took that deal. Pittsburgh actually tried here, and then you see exactly what the deal was. It's like, oh, Pittsburgh wasn't really trying. All right? $10 million guaranteed is what was actually guaranteed, and after that, I mean, they could cut him after any season, and they'll get away free. All right? So, I mean, it's up. I mean, that's what the Steelers wanted, but nonetheless, I'm still siding with Le'Veon Bell in this situation. Okay? So now it's going to be interesting. Does Le'Veon Bell sit out half of the season, or does he just play from week 1 and enjoy his last year as a Steeler? Okay? If I'm Le'Veon, I mean, like I said, you got to think about their future. Steelers didn't want to lock you up long term. Okay, they had an opportunity to. They didn't really offer you anything real. All right, it was all just pretty much smoke screens and all of that. All right. But, I mean, that's how the Steelers have always been. They're not going to really overpay for anyone. They're going to pay you what the market says you're worth, and if not, they'll let you walk. All right, I think this is going to be something where, I mean, both sides are probably better off moving on. The Steelers have always done well to stay relevant and develop a real solid team, and I'm sure Le'Veon, like I said, Le'Veon Bell's got the talent where he could go anywhere else and still be one of the best running backs in the league. All right, whether he ends up on the Browns next season or the Colts, we'll see. I mean, that's going to be a whole nother year we got to wait for, but nonetheless, I mean, like I said, I think both parties involved are just better off moving on. All right, so we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we're going to be talking about anything else going on in the world of football, so stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. So far today, we've talked to Earl Thomas, all right? I mean, he's pretty much just waiting on Seattle to extend him or just trade him, and I'm sure he's pretty much tired of the waiting. He just wants to figure out where he's going to be this season. And, I mean, that's one thing, too, where I always side with the players. I mean, imagine being uncertain with what's going on with your job, all right? I mean, Earl Thomas could have to move to the other side of the country. He could have to move to the middle of the country. Who knows? Okay. Second segment, we talked about the Rams extending Brandin Cooks. I don't know, man. You got to feel for Aaron Donald. But nonetheless, there's a point where you pay Aaron Donald, you're paying him a whole lot of money. Okay. And if you're LA, do you want to do that? I'm not too sure. All right, in that third segment, we talked about Le'Veon Bell and the Steelers. More details coming out on what exactly the Steelers offered him. 5 years, $70 million. 10 years of it, or $10 million of it guaranteed at signing. After that, it's a bunch of rolling guarantees, meaning they could cut him after a season and not have to pay him what he'd be guaranteed if he were on the 53-man roster the next season. Okay, kind of like Colin Kaepernick's deal when he was with San Francisco. All right. So now we talk about anything else going on in the world of football, and this isn't really news, but something that we can talk about, and Larry Fitzgerald says that, I mean, if he's not in Arizona, he won't be playing anywhere else, so it means he's going to be retiring as a Cardinal, okay? And I think a nice little player comparison as far as someone in a different sport for Larry Fitzgerald is Derek Jeter, all right? Both of them, I mean, extremely consistent over their professional careers, both extremely good at what they do, both one of the best at their positions, and both easily Hall of Famers. Both never got into any trouble or had a peep of anything wrong going on with their life outside of football, at least that we've heard of. Okay? I mean, Tim Duncan, like guys like that. The Jeters, the Duncans. Fitzgerald's a guy who you could throw his name in that little basket. Okay, Fitzgerald isn't necessarily talked about as far as one of the all-time greats is among wide receivers, but nonetheless, I mean, he is one of the greatest receivers ever. Okay, I think it's just the fact that he played in in Arizona is what keeps him from being regarded as, well, becoming as popular as he should be as amongst receivers. Okay? Playing in a big market does matter about that. All right? And I mean, he's third all-timer in receiving yards. He's behind Terrell Owens and Jerry Rice. He's ahead of guys like Randy Moss, Isaac Bruce, Tony Gonzalez, Tim Brown, Steve Smith, Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, Andre Johnson, James Lofton, Chris Carter, Anquan Bolden, Torrey Holt, Andre Reed, Steve Largent. All right? I mean, he's in good company there. As far as receptions, where's he at? He is third all-time in receptions. He's third all-time in receptions. He's third all-time in yards. All right, he catches more than 100 balls this season. He's second all-time in receptions. I think the only stat where he's not as high as far as receivers is touchdowns. Okay? And he's eighth all-time. Larry Fitzgerald is a top 5 receiver all-time. All right? He has to be. I mean, he's gonna move in. If he catches 4 touchdowns this season, he moves into top 6 all-time amongst receiving touchdowns. I don't understand why we don't. And maybe it's just one of those where I guess it's just unanimous to where everyone thinks he's a top 5 receiver all time, so we don't really talk about him. But I mean, I don't know. We don't talk about Larry Fitzgerald enough, and I'm just starting to realize that now. Okay? And I mean, as of right now, you got to think the guy's got at least a couple more seasons in it. Okay? In order to become top 5 all-time amongst receiving touchdowns, he needs 18 more touchdowns. Do you think he could get 9 this season, like average 9 the next 2 seasons? Possibly. All right, because you know what? I'm sure, given the kind of receiver Fitzgerald is, Sam Bradford's going to be looking for him a whole lot this season. Okay? So, I mean, Fitzgerald could be up for a big year. Let's see. Where's he at yards per reception all time? Let's see. This isn't necessarily going to be a stat. We're going to see too many guys that we've seen up there. He is, let's see, I can't even find his name. He's not top 28. This is going to be tough. All right. I mean, because you're going to have like the faster guys up here. Like Deshaun Jackson's the first active name up there. All right. Randy Moss and guys like that aren't even up here. So I guess this isn't really a stat where you really could pay too much attention to. This is all guys who back then did a lot. All right. But amongst like the big receiving numbers, I mean, touchdowns, yards, and receptions, he's top 3 in receptions and yards, and he's top 8 in touchdowns, and he's probably going to be top 6 by the end of the season. All right. So, I mean, Larry Fitzgerald, for me, a top 5 receiver all time, according to the stats. All right, should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. I didn't realize Larry was that high amongst all that. And like I said, we don't talk enough about him. Okay? I mean, let me look at his receiving. I said, was he third in receptions or was he first? So he's third in receptions. Like I said, he's ahead of guys like Jason Witten, Marvin Harrison, Chris Carter, Tim Brown, T.O., Bolden, Wayne, Johnson, Smith, Bruce, Hines Ward, Randy Moss, Brandon Marshall, all right, Andre Reed, Derek Mason, Art Monk, Antonio Gates, Torrey Holt, Wes Welker. I mean, yeah. We got to talk about Larry Fitzgerald more, okay? And I mean, he's never really been regarded as far as a top receiver since he's been in the league, as far as being the number 1 receiver. Okay? I mean, over his career, I mean, his second season, he had 103 receptions, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. Okay, his rookie season, he had 58 receptions, 780 yards, 8 touchdowns. His 2007 season, 100 receptions, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. 2008, 96 receptions, 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns. 2009, 97 receptions, 1,000 yards, nearly 1,100, 13 touchdowns. Okay. 2010, 90 receptions, 1,100 yards. 2011, 80 receptions, 1,400 yards. 2012 was a bit of a down year, 71 receptions, 798 yards. So he did have a bad stretch from 2012 to 2014 where his numbers weren't like terrible, but they weren't Larry Fitzgerald level. And then 2015 to 2017 absolutely erupted. 2015, 109 receptions, 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns. 2016 led the league in receptions, 107 receptions, 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. And this past year, 109 receptions, 1,100 yards, 6 touchdowns. So, I mean, the guy has always been relatively consistent and extremely good at what he does. Okay. And like I said, he's never been regarded as far as being the top receiver amongst active players in the NFL. But, I mean, like I said, we got to talk more about Larry Fitzgerald. The dude's one of the best to ever do it. All right? Probably the most underrated player of all time now that I'm thinking. All right? Because, I mean, we all know Larry's good, but we don't talk about him being all-time great. I mean, he is now, for me, a top 4 receiver all time. Okay? I'd say top 5, but top 4 I think is really where he's at. He's probably 4th. I mean, you go Randy Moss, T.O., Jerry Rice, and Larry. Okay? So, I mean, yeah. Larry Fitzgerald. One of the greatest to ever do it. All right? One of the greatest professionals ever. Okay? So, talked about that. Terrell Owens looking to make a comeback in pro football. I mean, the NFL is something he's interested in. That's not happening, though. All right, so I'm assuming, I mean, if the Edmonton Eskimos, because they're the ones who own his negotiating rights, if they could get a deal done with him, maybe he ends up there. I mean, they could offer him the rookie minimum, but I'm assuming that T.O. is not going to come back and play football for some minimum in Canada. I'm assuming the Edmonton Eskimos will need to pay him a decent amount of money. So, I mean, as far as him making a comeback, it doesn't seem like it's probably going to be happening, but nonetheless, it is a possibility. All right, and if T.O. goes to Canada and plays football there, I'm going to be watching. Okay? T.O.'s going to bring up the ratings. Let's get Johnny Manziel as a starting quarterback for the Hamilton Tiger Cats and get T.O. starting for the Edmonton Eskimos, and I'm all there. All right? So, I mean, that's just some notable news right there. But nonetheless, we're going to wrap it up. Today we talked Le'Veon Bell, we talked Earl Thomas, Brandin Cooks, Aaron Donald, Larry Fitzgerald, and Terrell Owens. So, thanks for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. I will be back tomorrow, so stay tuned, and I will talk to you guys later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.